We'll call to order the Board of Zoning Appeals. Would you please stand for the pledge? Pledge allegiance. Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Mike Curtis.
Here.
Amber Brown. Jerry Sartain.
Here.
Joe Machado. Gary Farley.
Here.
Renee Curtis.
Here.
Zane Cantrell.
Present. You have the minutes of the last meeting that we had in January, and I was not here, but Jerry presided, and I think he did a good job of all that I've heard. He didn't get to talk as much as he normally does. So, so anyway, are there any changes in the minutes of the last minute or any additions?
Make a motion to approve.
Have a motion that be approved?
Second.
Have a second. Call roll, please.
Mike Curtis.
Yes.
Amber Brown. Jerry Sartain.
Yes.
Gary Farley.
Yes.
Renee Curtis.
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Zane? Do we not have two sets of minutes to approve?
That was it. It was December and January.
Yeah, did we approve both of them with one motion?
My understanding that we did.
Okay.
We need to approve I thought we'd already approved the December.
No.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll amend it to include December and January.
Okay. We have a second? Second. Call roll, please.
Mike Curtis.
Yes.
Amber Brown. Jerry Sartain.
Yes.
Gary Farley.
Yes.
Renee Curtis.
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes. Take care of it now? Yes, sir. Okay.
And Nick is.
We have, first item on our agenda is Simmons Builders, and they're requesting a variance for a 6-foot side yard setback. What do you have on that, please?
Thank you. Application 2023-05 is a request for the property located at 11731 Milton Street. It's a 1.48 acre parcel, and they are seeking a variance from the 10-foot setback from the side yard. The applicant indicated that the structure was 9 feet 8 inches. We advertised 6 inches just to give him a little extra room just in case. At the time of application, he was advised to get a survey, and he got a survey, and the survey was presented to us, and that's what you have in your packets, which shows the 9-foot setback. But he is seeking a variance for a side yard encroachment that was not discovered until property lines were identified for the installation of a fence. And this is an after-the-fact variance request. The site doesn't exhibit any physical conditions that would prevent it from meeting the setbacks for the side yard requirements, but the site does have on one side of the property a large conservation area that he could not go into, and so he was also required to have a minimum pad, and to avoid having to establish that minimum pad, he placed the structure in such a manner that the rear corner of the home encroached into the side yard. So we received several calls on this request, and this is the lot in question. So you can see this large natural area. That on the plat is shown as area that's not usable. And then I believe that he was required to establish a minimum pad, but if he positioned the house in a manner that he wasn't required to establish it. But this corner right here encroaches into that side yard. So this aerial is from 2022, early 2022, when the house was being constructed. So obviously, you probably see building material that goes beyond, but that does not identify the limits of the structure. So we posted a sign on the property. We've received a lot of informational calls on this, but no one indicated being in favor or opposition. And you can see that the structure, the latest survey shows that it's 9 feet. I don't know if the type, the bold line is preventing the 8 inches or from being seen, but we are, the applicant is not planning to modify the structure by enlarging it. He just wants to be able to keep the structure without having to modify it and get a variance.
Do we know how this happened?
Pardon?
Do we know how it happened and why it wasn't caught?
Why it wasn't caught? You know, this is not completely uncommon. It's a very minor encroachment. And if the property lines weren't clearly identified when they were setting the foundation, I mean, the applicant's here, he could probably give you a bit of a more explanation, but it was caught when they were installing a fence.
We are talking about 6 inches, not 6 foot.
No, not 6 foot whatsoever,
Oh,
no.
I thought it said 6 foot. I'm
Representing
like,
Simmons.
Said 6 foot, but reading
okay.
the application is
All right.
6 inches.
That's why I was asking what is 6 inches. I understand 6 foot is what I'm like. Okay.
Yeah, it was basically a mistake. I deliberately placed the home where it's at. As she mentioned, there's a minimum pad elevation on the lot to avoid having to do any artificial fill, dig back through it, any of the complications that go with that. We had enough room to sit it back in that corner, which is on the highest part of the elevation of the lot. Made sense, looked best there, just made a mistake.
Oh, and I can understand the 6 inches, but when I heard 6 foot, I'm like, how can that be? You know.
And
Any other questions?
it's not the entire house. It's one corner that's about this far of the house.
I have a question for staff. Could this, since this is part of a, looks like at least a minimum two-lot subdivision, could this property line be re-subdivided and or amended as part of the plat process?
It always can be re-subdivided. You have to have 2 willing parties to enter into the subdivision. So if the lot 2 has been sold and that person's unwilling to negotiate some kind of transfer, you know, he has no control over that, so.
Yeah.
But I don't know the situation. I don't know who owns lot 2 and whether or not, you know.
But it could be done.
It always can be done.
All right, thank you.
Get your answer.
Yeah, I got my answer, but there's kind of what Mike was talking about. I think this here will probably be the simplest fix by doing it through the BZA instead of doing that.
Yeah, and this wasn't discovered until toward the end of the home. Like I said, we deliberately placed it there. We knew it was near 10 feet, like it's supposed to be the minimum, until a fence went up on the property line. That's when we physically measured it and we're like, well, we're at.
You know, it's been my experience with these that when you start surveying to sell, you find out you've made a mistake, and the lending people, they want that survey and exemption. Is that probably what happened?
The new homeowners are completely aware.
Yep.
They have no problem with it whatsoever. They're not.
Anything else? Thank you. You may be seated. We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on this. Close the public hearing.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Have a motion be approved. Have a second.
Second.
Have a second. Call a roll, please.
Mike Curtis,
No.
Amber Brown. Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
Gary Farley,
Yes.
Renee Curtis.
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes. The next item we have is a request by Alice Williams, who is requesting a special exemption for an animal vegetarian facility And I think this is large animal. What do you have on that, please?
Thank you. Application 2023-6 is a request for special exception approval for the establishment of a large animal veterinary facility upon a property located in the RL Low Density Residential Zoning District. And this property is located off of Barlow Lane. The address is 9573. The acreage of the property is a 90.03 acre parcel that's been utilized as a farm. It has several structures existing. The applicant's planning to use the existing barns and buildings on the property to establish the large veterinary facility upon this property. And so the RL district allows agricultural sales and services as a special exception in this district, and the applicant proposes to be open from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Monday through Friday, and that up to 4 employees are planned. The applicant also plans to install a sign advertising the proposed facility. When we posted the sign on the zoning sign on the property, we noticed that the farm had, a sign on the property, and farms are allowed to have signs. The applicant's indicated that she's spoken with neighbors and no one has indicated any issues, and that we find that it's in keeping with the rural nature of the area. We, considered the special exception criteria and found that this request met the special exception criteria. And so this is a aerial of the property. It's a large acreage tract, and posted a sign on the property, and you can see that the farm already had a sign located on the property. So they are allowed up to a certain square footage of signage. And the applicant kind of drew out what the structures would be used for, and she plans to use existing structures. There's a lot of area for horses to graze, I guess, during their recovery process. And so that concludes our presentation.
Do we have anyone here representing this request? If you'll come around, please. Hi. Tell us a little about what your proposal is.
I'm a large animal veterinarian. I have been for the last 13 years in the Middle Tennessee area. Basically, I've been completely mobile, so I drive all day long, work an hour, drive an hour, work an hour, drive an hour, and I've reached the maximum capacity of what I can do in a day's time. And so I actually have clients that are helping me with the purchase of the property so that I can see more clients and help more people.
When you talk about large animals, what are the ones you...
Probably 90% equine, so horses, and then I actually do chiropractic and acupuncture, so I do work on some show cattle and show goats doing basically physical therapy type stuff.
Amber, did you have a question? You're asking that. Anyone else? Thank you very much. We appreciate it. We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on this request. Give us your name and any information.
Yes, sir. Good evening. I'm Trey Smith, and I live at 7961 Barlow Lane. It's my primary resident, and my family and I border the applicant's property on the north, pretty much on the north side. I was not contacted by Dr. Williams, but I'm not holding that against you. As a son of a local veterinarian, I'm in favor of this happening. If you read the data and see what's being put out, we're going to have a shortage of veterinarians soon to come, and I think veterinary medicine and a practice in our Las Casas community would be welcome and needed. And my only request would be just for consideration that Dr. Williams would consider writing scripts for the livestock community as the over-the-counter, the LA 200s and the oxytetracyclines in June are set to expire and be prescription only. So that's all I've got. Appreciate your time. Any questions?
Thank you. We appreciate your comments. Anyone else? Close the public hearing.
Move for approval.
I second.
Have a motion, who's second? Okay. Call the roll, please.
Mike Curtis.
Yes.
Amber Brown. Jerry Sartain.
Yes.
Joe Machado. Gary Farley.
Yes.
Renee Curtis. Zane Cantrell.
Yes. The next item is a request by Michael Dennison, who is requesting a special exemption for a home-based business, and this is restoring custom vehicles. What do you have on that, please?
Thank you. Application 2023-07 involves a property located at 4814 Poplar Wood Road. It's a request for special exception for the establishment of a major home-based business involving the restoration of custom vehicles upon the property located in the RM medium-density residential zoning district. And this is a 5.3 acre property, and the applicant came into our office as a result of a code enforcement contacted him. There was a complaint regarding a junkyard, unapproved business being located at the site, and he was told to come into our office to talk about possible remedies to the violation. And he is applying for a major home-based business. He did indicate that in his application that he did have a location that he could store some of the cars that are on site, but he's in retirement and he would like to continue to help friends and family and friends of friends restore their vehicles, custom vehicles. And so we have received several phone calls regarding this application. Several people have expressed concerns about stormwater runoff or the chemicals that are used in the process of restoring the cars running off into the stormwater. Additional traffic, and then just having their property values being affected by this type of operation being located next to them. In fact, one of the individuals that reached out to us indicated that there was a similar request applied for many years ago, and so we tracked that old request down, and it just so happened that a temporary special or conditional use permit, it went before the Planning Commission back in 2004, and I guess it was the result of a code enforcement complaint, and he was required to clean up the site, but he was given a certain time period to be able to relocate his business activities. And since it was temporary, it had expired, and inspections in later years indicated that the site was in compliance. So this activity is fairly recent, and I'm imagining the applicant can give a little more detail about the procedures that are going to take place. But in his application, he's proposing to be open Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. to 4 p.m. He's not proposing any non-resident employees. However, occasionally there will be people with specialties like detailing or like mechanical specialists come on site to help with a particular car. He's not planning to advertise his business. There will be no sign proposed. And so staff found that if he's able to operate within the conditions for a major home-based business and continually operated within those parameters, it would meet the conditions for special exception approval. However, we would like to recommend that if the board does consider approving this application, that they include the condition that he continually complies with the major home-based business regs, and also that the site and structures is inspected by building codes and the fire marshal to determine that all safety requirements are being met and followed. And that concludes our presentation.
Do you have anyone here representing this request? If you'll come around, please. Additional information you want?
Michael Dennison, I own the property. Basically, I'm repairing old cars. I mean, restoring. Have been doing it for several years. It just was a way for me to relax. But I owned Gold Street Automotive for 25 years, and I just retired, sold out. It's on South Lowry Street. And since then, I just tinker on them at home and fix problems for not only a car, it might be a truck or a piece of equipment, whatever somebody would like to restore is what I do.
Are the vehicles going to be outside or inside, and how many are you going to have on?
Time. My biggest thing is if I store an old car, I sit over here until I order parts for it. It just sits around. But I have a storage lot on South Lowry Street that I park them if I don't like to keep more than 3 to 5 cars there at a time. But most of the cars that if I'm working on something, it's mostly inside.
Okay, so as far as
Repairs would be inside, yeah.
so there's not going to be any vehicles outside on the lot.
Most everything is inside. I do have an outside drive-on lift to do the bigger equipment if I was doing something, but yeah.
So a home-based business, something that people don't even know is there, because this is residential. There's residential lots.
They're vacant. The lot right beside me is vacant. The lot on the other side of me has been vacant for several years, and there's one little garage apartment in the front of it. There's nobody behind me, there's nobody beside me.
But those lots are buildable.
Are visible?
Somebody owns those lots and might want to put a home there.
Yeah, well, the lot right next to me to the right there, it doesn't perk, so there's never going to be a site on it. And behind me, it doesn't perk either, and it joins a church that's on the other side, and they're not even, it goes in the seminary road on that side.
Some of the things that we have to look at is, okay, if you're going to be doing car repairs and stuff out there, you have to seclude it from the neighbors because you're in a residential zone. How would you propose to do that?
Well, there's fencing up around everything. I put another double fence up behind the place. You cannot, if you can ask her, when they looked it up, they couldn't see nothing from the road, correct?
Not from the road.
Nothing. And there's no houses on either side of me or behind me. There's another, it's vacant completely back there. It's all wooded area. And my little slice is just cut out. Once I'm back there, you never know I was there. Like I say, that the churches and all that behind me, there's tunneling rocks, I guess is what you call it. Rutherford County, I'm learning what Rutherford County is, the rocks. There's just little tunnels of them back through there where it's been that way for years and years. It'd be nearly impossible to build on.
Thank you.
Any other question? Thank you. May be seated.
Okay.
We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on this request. If you'll come around, please.
My name's Darwin McCollum. I live at 4900 Poplarwood Road. The vacant lot that he was speaking of earlier, I own that. He said that it won't perk. It will perk on my property. If I chose to build a house there, I could run the sewer or the septic to where it does perk. So they just built the Stewart's Creek campus down the street from us, I guess 10 years ago or so. At that time, we were hoping that we would get a sewer line. If we got a sewer line, all that would be, water under the bridge. My only concern is any home-based major business declining my property value. That's my biggest concern. And interfering with this vacant lot that I've got. So that's my only concerns.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Curtis Ladd. I live right around the corner from Poplarwood. My kids have been going to Stewart's Creek I've got one going into high school this next coming year, and I've still got one in elementary school. I haven't seen any increase in traffic. I don't hear any extra noise pollution. anything like that. I mean, the loudest thing I hear, and I live on Field Court, by the way, which is right off Seminary. The loudest thing I hear is the trucking complex there on the corner. I mean,
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Public hearing. Close the public hearing. Any further discussion?
Chairman? I have a staff question, mainly to the codes. When this image was taken, the aerial imagery was taken in January of last year, I'm counting roughly 20 vehicles on the property. How many are out there now?
Mr. Chairman, if it's possible, I know we've not had the open hearing has been stopped, but I'd like to suspend the rules to allow the applicant to come back up here and answer the question that Mr. Curtis said, because I'd like to know that myself.
Got it.
I'll second that motion.
Right now, I have about 8. I moved everything out when I realized I was in the wrong, and I moved everything down to the lot.
How many cars would you have at one time?
Well, if I have a headliner guy like I had come in and put a headliner in, he'll have his vehicle there. And then if I have, not all the paint work and none of that stuff I do there too, by the way, when they're talking about chemicals and all that stuff. And today's water-based paints that they use, they can spray them right out in the air. They're not in, no chemicals at all. So I can't count the cars that I have inside, but on the outside there's like 8 right now.
Are you the only one working?
Me, and like I say, I'll call different people up, say, hey, I need you to come in and do this or do that.
So more than like 2 or 3 of you?
No, there's, three at the most, usually every day at the most, if you call workers.
Well, 8 is a lot different than the 2 or 3 you said before.
Yeah, well, I'm saying right now, he wanted to know how many I had. 8, and I'm counting my personal vehicles, which I have 4 sitting around front right now. So you want to know my personal cars.
Here's what my concern is now. You told me a while ago that you had a lot on South Lowry Street in Smyrna, and that all the other ones that are being worked on are inside.
Yeah.
Now I'm hearing you've got 8 out
I have my wife's car, and I have my Jeep sitting there. I have my Chevrolet pickup truck sitting there. I have my camper sitting there, and I have like a dump truck. It's my personal. I have 5 of my personal vehicles sitting there.
And the other 3 are cars that have been worked on?
Are cars I'm working on, yeah.
Let me ask this question. If you were allowed to do this, would you be agreeable to there be no other vehicles outside on this property except the vehicles that you are driving?
My day-to-day drivers, you mean?
Yes.
Just leave them outside? Yeah, yeah. I even have the carports. Everything I have is under carports.
Yeah,
basically.
because I have the same concern, I think, that Jerry's got.
You don't want a lot of cars sitting around.
Well, it's a home-based business, but it's supposed to be where you can't tell it's a home-based business. If you got all these vehicles that are out there on the lot that's being worked on, it's going against the
Understand?
the rules and regulations that we've got here. So
Yeah. No, I won't. I mean, if you say I'm allowed to have 3 cars sitting outside waiting, then I'll have 3 cars sitting outside waiting.
me personally, I would think that since you got a lot, that those cars will be at the lot. And when you need to have one, you can bring it to this, because where the home-based business part of it is, you can't tell it's a home-based business.
Can't. I mean,
You
can't
can if you got 3 cars out there on the lot that.
Yeah, but you can't even see any cars. You can't see nothing here. But I understand what you're saying. Yes, I understand. I'd be glad.
Any other questions?
The staff brought up the nonconformance from years ago when you had a temporary.
Yeah, we had a fire. I was in Nashville, and we had a fire, and I came there. I didn't know your rules. I was from Ohio. I came here, and we had a fire on, it was on Dickerson Road in Nashville, and it burnt the garage down. So I came there and started working, and then someone said, hey, you know, you're not allowed to do this, and the codes guy shows up. So I said, okay. So they give me a temporary while I found a business building. So I went to Gold Street that I started, like I say, it's been 20-some years ago, and I went to there and went straight to work, and I moved everything off. The cars that they said they seen there a year ago was sitting around. Those are the cars that I had inside the building that I just hadn't got back into tinkering with. So since then, I moved everything out.
So, but as of recently, you've got 8 cars out.
Yeah, like I said.
5 of them are your own.
Yeah, so there's 3 out there right now.
Thank you.
Thank you. You may be seated. Any further, we've closed the public hearing, but since he came back up, does anyone else want to add anything to it? We'll get everybody covered in the public hearing. Public hearing's closed. I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we deny it, but based on that, he's got those vehicles out there, and I guarantee you those vehicles are gonna stay there. They're not gonna be put on another lot.
I have a motion that it be denied, and it gave the reasons.
I'll second it in that it's not compatible with the surrounding.
Call a roll, please.
Mike Curtis,
Yes.
Amber Brown,
Yes.
Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
Gary Farley,
Yes.
Renee Curtis,
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
No. I think we needed more study on this. But anyway, if you've made your decision. The next item of business will go with Stuart Conway, who is requesting a major exemption for a major home business. And this is parking commercial vehicles and equipment upon his property. What do you have with that, please?
Thank you. Application 2023-8 involves a property located at 4535 Veterans Parkway. It's a request for special exception for the establishment of a major home-based business involving the parking of commercial vehicles and equipment upon a property located in the RM zone. And this property is 7.7 acres, and this request is the result of code enforcement action. Mr. Conway was notified that he was operating an unapproved business from a residential property, and he came into our office to discuss what his options were. So he opted to apply for a major home-based business. The business activity will take place Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. He's requesting a maximum number of 2 non-resident employees. He will propose to have 1 mobile mechanic on site all week that will maintain the equipment and vehicles. The applicant is requesting approval for the storage of commercial trucks, including triaxle dump trucks, 2 lowboy trailers, a rig, 1 box trailer, 2 tool trucks, and 1 machine. He's not proposing any signage, and even though this wasn't mentioned in his request, when an inspection by code enforcement documented that 2 fueling tanks and a stockpile of soil was also on the property. 2 fueling tanks and a pile of soil. So, and I believe I have pictures from the code enforcement inspection, so you can see the activity taking place on the site. Now, staff advised the applicant that as part of the major home-based businesses, 1 non-negotiable condition is that the owner must reside on the property. The applicant indicated to me that his father owns the property. It's the primary residence of his father, but he is the applicant. So this is the site in question. It's developed as a residential home. There's a lot of activity taking place in this area, and the applicant indicated that long-term plans, he plans to annex into the city and requests a commercial zoning designation. You can see the area is transitioning. That's a Kroger across the street at the intersection of Veterans Parkway and Franklin. And so this is the surrounding area. And the site is bordered by trees. You can see some of the activity taking place down the driveway from the road. These are photos taken by code enforcement when they inspected the site. So you see the fueling tank. This is a structure that was built as a detached accessory structure, but it's being utilized for the shop. You can see several of the trucks, and you can see the pile of soil in the back. And there's another fueling tank. So staff is concerned about the fueling tanks, and if the board chooses to approve this request, that all required inspections by fire marshal building codes would be required before the applicant could continue operating the business from this site to, just ensure that the site is being operated safely and in a manner that doesn't pose a threat to adjacent properties. And so just additional photos of the parking area that the applicants identified. So we did receive a call from a neighboring property. They were concerned about the constant noise that from the vehicles being warmed up in the mornings, getting ready to move, to the site where they're actually doing work. And there were just some concerns about, they're living close by with all this type of activity next door. And so the applicant provided us a site plan. And staff found that the request failed to meet all of the conditions for a major home-based business. We do recommend several conditions if the board chooses to approve this request. And that concludes our presentation.
We have anyone here representing this request? If you'll come around, please. Give us your name. And my first question here is, what vehicles and how many would you be parking there?
I'm Stuart Conway at 4535 Veterans Parkway. Currently, winter season's a little bit slower time of the year, and so right now we're running about 3 triaxle trucks. Summertime will go to about 5 to 6.
You have nowhere other place to park them?
We do have another site that we're currently developing. Just convenience-wise, this is better. We've been doing this for about 3 years. We have good relationships with our neighbors. The neighbor to the south, they just sold for a residential and commercial development for Camino Real. And so we're on a 5-lane highway. I think long-term the property is going to be developed. But we'd like to just continue what we're doing until that time, whether it be
So you've
a year.
been doing this for some time then, parking there. My concern is having this commercial parking lot on Veterans Parkway. That's a pretty nice place, a lot of residential there.
North it is residential. The property to the south just annexed and rezoned, and so we're going to be right next door to some commercial. Across the street's commercial. So we're right at the edge.
How long have you been here doing this at this location?
Oh, sure, sorry. How long?
How long?
3 years.
Okay. And where were you at before?
This is basically where we've been since,
Started up.
outside of a commercial zone property or industrial zone property.
And you thought that this was a good idea to go into a residential area with all this large equipment?
Well, we don't actually perform any of the work on the property. We're just parking the trucks there during the night.
Well, it looks like a shop. It's got a large equipment. It's got fuel tanks that are not even diked. so they don't meet code. And you move it into a residential area. I'm just wondering what the thought process was of doing that. Because if I lived beside you, I would be wondering and asking the same questions, you know. I mean, that looks like a construction site.
The parking area is roughly 600 plus feet off of Veterans. If you look back, you could probably see it from the road, but we pushed it back as far as possible. Most of the vehicles are parked, you know, adjacent or behind the building. As a matter of fact, the building is not being fully used for the business itself. It's personal storage for me. There's a little tool cabinet in the corner, but majority is just parking of the vehicles itself.
And I'm transparent as I can be, and I'll tell you, I got more concerned on this one than I did the previous one.
Understand.
Up here. This here it's not good. It's not a home-based business. I mean, you can see all this stuff.
Danielle, could you pull up shows the lots?
The aerial? Okay.
So it's actually closer to your neighbor's house than it is to the road.
Would be. It's about 1,400 feet deep. The property is roughly 250, 275 feet wide.
It never occurred to you that your neighbors might not appreciate it looking like that?
We have good communication with our neighbors. And any concerns he addresses, and we definitely try to be good neighbors. Now, if this is not a right fit as far as the major home-based business, then we're open to suggestions of becoming compliant to continue what we need to do. But like I said, it's basically just the parking of the vehicles. I mean, no activities going on the site. So just whatever the right fit is for us, we just like to know.
To me, the right fit for commercial business or commercial parking like that right there would be in a commercial zone somewhere, not a residential, my opinion.
And the only reason this came up is the neighbor to the south, we actually bought his 40 by 40 metal building, and we went to put it up, and my concrete guy said, you need a permit. So I went to get a permit, pulled the aerial, saw the trucks, and said even one truck is considered in violation. So this started the process. So there hasn't been a complaint, to my knowledge, of having, you know, this for 3 years. It's just because I tried to get a permit for a new metal building. So this is kind of the domino of it.
And it still don't make it right.
I understand.
Yeah. So your neighbor was okay with this? That you're saying?
Well, he's here. He can speak for himself if you'd like to talk to him.
All right. Thank you.
Gary, do you have? We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on this. If you'll come around, please.
Jimmy Neal, I live right next to him on that house that you're talking about. Been there 30 years. And he's been there doing that about 3 years, and at the time, we had problem with it. It was noise, and it's still noise. But I would go to him and talk to him, and they would try to remedy part of it, and it did. And I'm trying to be a good neighbor about it, but I don't want it where it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, because I bought that house to retire in and have residential there. And if it went commercial or something other else like that, then it would, I think it's going to affect my property values.
So, you correct me if I'm wrong. What I just heard you say was you're not really.
Sir?
What I'm hearing you say is, and you correct me if I'm wrong, you're not really 100% good with this.
No, sir. I mean, that's true. I mean,
but he just said that you were. I want to make sure that I heard what I heard and get the correct.
maybe I explain that again. What did you say?
He just said that you were okay with it.
I've been okay with it for what he's done with it, but I'm wondering if this permit that he gets, or whatever he gets, he's allowed to grow and put 30 trucks in there. I don't want that. And like I said, the noise bothers me.
It would bother me too.
I just have a quick question. What kind of noise are you hearing?
Well, when the dump trucks bang those tailgates at 7 or 8 o'clock at night and at 6 o'clock in the morning or whatever it is. And did you, somebody say that you had to be living in a house to have a home-based business? And the response was what on that question?
His father as a primary owner.
Yeah. He has to be the one living in it.
Got Mike?
Or,
Just clarify, you are either north or south of this property?
I'm right, I'm the
All right.
one,
Is it the one above it or the one below it? You're the one below, so you. No, it's fine. I just want to,
One.
his is the red box. Are you closer to Franklin Road or is he? You're closer to 840 than he is, so you're on the north side. Okay, thank you.
Renee, did you have a question?
And as far as the noise is concerned, is where I live now, there's so many dump trucks leaving. I mean, they come in and they boom, 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 out the driveway. They come back and they gear down
yes,
to get into the driveway.
yes.
And I feel like we live at Love's Truck Stop. So is that what you're hearing in your bedroom in the morning?
Yes, I am.
Love's Truck Stop.
I
Thank you.
think I live in a truck stop. But I mean, like I said, he's corrected some of his problems, and I'm not here to bash my neighbor.
Sure. Sure.
We'll do what's right.
Sure.
Okay,
We appreciate it. Thanks for coming.
okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we deny the request based on it's not conducive to the neighborhood.
Correct.
I second.
Have a second.
I would like to.
Call the roll, please.
Hold on just a second, Mr. Chairman, please. I would like to point out that it doesn't show it on this map, but the city has just recently annexed the property to the south, and there may be a remedy for him by requesting annexation and rezoning into the city to permit this. So there is another solution for the applicant.
Okay.
I don't think the city would even do this.
Call the roll, please.
Speculating.
Mike Curtis,
Yes.
Amber Brown,
Yes.
Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
Gary Farley,
Yes.
Renee Curtis.
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes. That concludes our business. Several of you have mentioned to me about your concern about having paper information sent to us or somehow gotten to us. I've asked Jeff to look into it and see if he could help us with this. We think it's not a good move right now. And Danielle, if you will take that back to your boss, we're all opposed to this at this time. We need this information out to us. There's a lot of information that we cannot get. I don't have a computer myself to read all this with, so I'm having to do it on my smartphone, and most of us are. But if we can get this, and I think that's what you all have said to me, it would be of benefit and help us all out. We are adjourned. Thank you.